I think there will be question marks about Enzo, not because he's not good enough, because he definitely is good enough, I think, but whether he thinks he's enjoying his time at Chelsea and could have a
Enzo
better
Fernandez, you
time
mean?
elsewhere. Yeah. Enzo Fernandez, not Maresca. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, Enzo Fernandez. I think Fernandez is certainly good enough to be at the top level in world football. He's technically unbelievable,
Mm.
but he's lightweight, and when he's in the midfield, Chelsea are a bit of a ring donut, and Caicedo has to clean up after him. We're far more creative when he's in the team than when he's out of the team. Although I really rate Lavia, I think Lavia is actually more of what we need. And actually, Andre Santos has been killing it at Strasbourg again this season. And I think he's definitely going to get minutes. I know that you've got some opinions on Kiernan Dewsbury Hall, of which I tend to agree. Although, as an individual player, I like him. As a piece of business, I don't understand it. Um, so I think there's maybe something that needs to be done. Like if Enzo leaves, maybe someone needs to be bought in. I think Ugochukwu is going to get sold. I can't see a future for him at Chelsea, unfortunately for him. I don't know why he'd go to Southampton. That's a sinking ship. Enzo may or may not leave. It's going to be very hard for him to find a suitor because of the price and probably the wages. So can Chelsea make it work? I don't know.
Oh no, I was
Go
going to
on.
say, because you just talked about the midfield, right? And it's funny enough, actually, this morning before recording this, I think it was Cy Phillips who was reporting about Chukwuemeka having interest from Ipswich, and it's kind of my biggest retort. You have to accept that Gallagher's gone, and unfortunately, we will reassess that at the end of the season how that piece of business actually looks, because I can't make a firm judgment right now in mid-November. However, like if our whatever happens with that midfield situation, if Chelsea don't get Champions League football, if our midfield is in tatters a bit, and Enzo Fernandez has moved on, and Kiernan Dewsbury is being sold because of what a pointless signing, and Chukwuemeka leaves, I know a lot of hypotheticals there. My biggest frustration currently with the Dewsbury Hall signing is the fact that it's one of the most pointless signings I've ever seen in my life. Like genuinely, like I don't understand it. I find it absolutely comical that there are people in the summer trying to defend it and trying to tell us that it was an upgrade, a serious upgrade, even on Conor Gallagher, who was still at the club, and even on Carly Chukwuemeka. And the fact is now, Dewsbury was taking minutes away from a player like Chukwuemeka, who I just think should be at the club. It is better. I think it's better now. It's going to get even better.
Yep.
And I really like watching him play football. I think anytime I watch him play for Chelsea, I'm excited because I think he could be a difference maker in the long term. I think the way he's able to maneuver within tight spaces, the way he's able to connect with players, he has a really, I think, good judgment of what to do with the ball, and also just athletically, I think also could maybe play as a number 8, even a deeper midfielder. I think he's got the profile to do that. And I think the most excited I think we are about him is kind of in that number 10 role, right? Or kind of in and around the 6-yard box. I think the way he connects there. But I think he could also fill in as a central midfielder if he needed him to, because he's done it already in his career.
100%.
But,
100%.
that's the frustration. And I think with Chukwuemeka, it leads into Enzo Fernandez. I'm a lot harsher on Enzo Fernandez. I don't quite... Again, we've talked about this with Sanchez. We'll talk about this with other players. I just don't give him the grace and the standard. Oh, he's amazing. You've got to actually show it to me on a regular basis, and he doesn't show it to me on a regular basis. So Enzo Fernandez for me has been one of Chelsea's poorest performers this season. I mean, he has rightly been dropped to the B team. His on the ball, I think he's been at times quite shocking. Off the ball, he offers absolutely nothing in terms of protection. That's why Lavia came into the team at Anfield. I thought that was, talk about Enzo Maresca gaining my respect. That was like one of those decisions where I thought, okay, I actually think you've got the character to do this job, because you dropped a player for a player who's barely played football this season at a massive ground in a massive game where Enzo Fernandez surely would play, right? And from there, Lavia and Caicedo have become the Premier League partnership, and I don't think anyone has... I understand the creative argument, and sure, he did set up Pedro Neto, but I mean, could anyone else just play that pass? I'm not entirely sure. Like that, to me, I don't think that Enzo Fernandez pass to Pedro Neto is like a case of only Enzo Fernandez could have played that pass. It was more the case
Oh
that,
no, yeah, of course.
yeah, do you know what I mean? Like, and people bringing up he's had like 5 assists in his last 2 games. So one of those was against a team called Noah, and he was just floating. Anyone could have played that set piece into the box, and I think we would have headed it in. So it's a little bit warped, right? So there's still just huge. Funny enough, our last conversation we spoke about Enzo Fernandez and how he was going to be played. And so far, or at least in recent weeks, he hasn't been played in the Premier League that much because his performances haven't merited it. So I don't know. I just find it weird as well that, he's so good, he's so amazing, and he's going to be gifted by a move to Real Madrid. And it's like, well, it's a bit like the false football economy that just really irritates me, that his performances haven't showed anywhere close to that. He hasn't been as good for Chelsea as Nicholas Jackson. He hasn't even, like, it'd be laughable to even suggest he's in the same league as Cole Palmer. I know Cole Palmer is a freakishly incredible player we have seen in recent years, but you have to understand that is what Enzo Fernandez is consistently sold to be, right? When you say that he's like this amazing midfielder.
Yeah, he's world class. He's
Yeah.
world class. He's world class is the thing. He's the young guy, the World Cup winning. Interestingly, actually, the player we should have got from that Argentina team now plays for Liverpool. But I think Enzo is an underrated tackler. He obviously doesn't win anything in the air. I think he makes a few more tackles than we sometimes give him credit for, but generally his presence isn't there in that deep-lying role to defend in transition. Actually, this season, his pass completion, I don't know, have you seen the data on it?
Yeah. I mean, I looked at this. I looked at this when during the last international break, I made a show on it, and because I could tell that it was going to become a problem. Because I just watched his performances not be that good for a few weeks, and especially the Forest game, he was also just giving the ball away in really stupid areas. And again, it gets back to, why do you have Enzo Fernandez in the team if he ain't good on the ball and he's not good off the ball? Then why can't someone else just do that job? That's the point. And then it gets to a very uncomfortable question, which is, well, what is Enzo Fernandez good at? What is his kind of long-term future? Because he can't be a Kiernan Dewsbury Hall C player who just kind of fades into the background and comes in for the Conference League games and no one really bothers about it. He's a name, right? And because of what happened during the summer, there's even more scrutiny on his character. Which, self-inflicted. That's just the nature of the game. So it's a huge question, and maybe people will maybe argue that I'm being unfair by comparing him and his importance to Jackson and Palmer. Well, let's compare him to the other over 100 million pound midfielder that we bought in Moises Caicedo, who we've already said is incredible. Like, his performances, I think, in terms of consistency this year, he is the best Chelsea player this season in terms of week in, week out, a high level of performance. Palmer is obviously, to most people, going to be deemed Chelsea's best performer because he scored a lot of goals. He's incredible, but he has had a few frustrating days, right? Caicedo, week in and week out, is performing to a high level. That is so much so now that the conversation around his price tag is non-existent, and people outside of Chelsea are having to accept that. Yeah, Caicedo, jokes. I think it was Grace on Football even tweeted this after the Man United game. Like, jokes on us really on Caicedo now. Like, Chelsea are going to have the last laugh on him because he's clearly amazing. Like, it's just undeniable. That's where Enzo Fernandez is supposed to be. Like, that's my point. Like, that's where he's supposed to be, and I don't think it's a misconception. We just don't get Enzo Fernandez, or Chelsea aren't using him properly. I don't agree. I just fundamentally don't agree. I think the player, it's a bit like a Paul Pogba classic Mesut Ozil situation. The player is just not living up to expectation, and the player needs to be doing a lot more to justify the hype around him, which probably annoys a lot of Fernandez stands because I know there's a lot of them out there, but I'm not on board. And I think the data and just the reality in front of me shows me an underperforming player.
I love Ozil and Pogba as well. They're two names. They're two players that I absolutely love. Interestingly on those two, I will say, so with Caicedo on average this season attempts maybe five passes less a game than Enzo, right? So Caicedo maybe is passing five passes less a game than Enzo. Caicedo's pass completion rate is near 90%. Enzo's is 82%, and that's a massive downgrade. Like, I know it doesn't sound that much different, 89.1 and 82.9 for Fernandez, but that puts Fernandez in the bottom 50% of passers in Europe's top 5 leagues in terms of, how accurate his passes are. What I love about Enzo is I love how progressively he passes. I really, really like that. I think that's a really important skill to have. However, when it's not backed up by other things, for example, I don't actually trust him really in front of goal. In truth, I would expect a couple more goals from him. He's obviously not physical, so he needs to compensate for that in other ways. Like the chance against Man United, for example, has to be scored. Absolutely has to be scored. It's not easy, but has to be scored. Especially with respect, I know that it's not necessarily fair, but you're a £100 million player. You have to score that. You just do.
I think Bruno Fernandez probably scores that goal, or probably does a lot better, right?
Bruno Fernandez scores that 10 times out of 10, bro. Like, Cole Palmer scores that 10 times out of 10. I think Carney would score it. I think Pedro Neto scores it. Any of those players score it. Caicedo clearly can score. I think it's a poor miss, and it's not his fault we didn't win, but that would have really helped us get there. If we went 2-1 up, we still could have thrown it away, but it's unlikely. I think with Enzo, I rate him so much, but I wonder whether just the type of football that's played in the Prem is for him. And I know that's really reductive, but I'm not quite sure. I think Chelsea needs someone that's more robust, like Lavia, like Carney. We need to definitely be pushing more, bring Carney back. I cannot believe he doesn't get minutes. It's an absolute outrage, to be honest. So I think Enzo will probably not be here for the long term. He was initially the franchise player. He's not anymore. That's Cole. He was the best midfielder we have. He's not anymore. That's Caicedo. Lavia is he 19? Is he 19? 20? Something absolutely jokes like that. And with Enzo, the thing that I don't like, in truth, and I know this is people get annoyed about, but you can just tell sometimes attitude stinks.
Oh, yeah.
His attitude stinks. Like, I know he's lower on confidence and getting taken out. Typically, getting taken out of the team is a wake-up call to get yourself back into the team, not just to sulk around. I don't care if you get 3 assists against Noah. Anyone in our team gets 3 assists against Noah. It doesn't matter. They are rubbish. In comparison to Chelsea, they're doing great in terms of what they're doing over the last 10 years in a sort of far-out league and trying to build something. I respect it. But compared to where Chelsea are, they got whitewashed in 30 minutes and Chelsea just chilled out for the rest of the game, as expected. And that leads to distortions in statistics. We are obviously more creative as a team, but we're less robust. And in the Premier League, you need to have a combination of those two things that work perfectly to do so.